How has this affected the lesbian community, the people that you've known? Could you tell us like some anecdotes and some stories about how it's shaping and reshaping that particular subset of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think the lesbian community has been affected in a lot of ways, and one of the ways is that we've just kind of seen a general erosion of the community. So I'm Gen X, right? So I can represent Gen X on this, but it's kind of like my generation we got a little bit of what the earlier generations had created. We got lesbian bars, or at least nights, where we could gather. We still had community centers at that point. We had, kind of services and a sense of community that brought us all together. And that was really important for, normalizing the experience of being a homosexual, bisexual woman in society, and being able to build those connections and deal with, the internalized shame that people feel, or the external shame that they experience, and just getting that support system. But what we've seen is that kind of has more and more has gone away for the younger generations. And so when we talk to our younger members, who almost one of them in particular almost transed herself, right? In part because she was uncomfortable in her body. She didn't have community. It was cooler to, it was better to just pretend to be a man, because, you're so brave and stunning if you pretend to be a man instead of a lesbian. And so like these ideas have really permeated, especially in the younger generations. And so it's resulted in an increasing number of lesbians going down this trans path. So like I mentioned earlier, when a lesbian transes, then you no longer have the visibility. You no longer see a lesbian couple in public, right? Even in our own communities, if we were just to gather with just, lesbians and bi women, well, now it looks like it doesn't look right anymore, because it's like, well, we're all females, we're all women, right? But what's going on here, right? So, so there's been this erosion, and there's been an erosion of, as Belissa mentioned earlier, the LGB organizations became LGBT, which we call LGBT Inc., because it's really corporate. They really became corporate. And they became increasingly more and more funded by these rich billionaires that were specifically funding everything for the T. So we saw a loss of services for LGBT people. We saw a loss of community for LGBT people, and just increasingly so over the generations. And so then we've got these younger generations just kind of left on their own with no community, no support, and the narrative of it being, cooler or better to somehow trans the gay away than to actually just be a lesbian in society. So, there's, I'm sure, specific instances. Like, I can't tell you how many lesbians or bi women that I've known that at some point say, I'm a he, him, I'm a they, them. They don't want to use female pronouns anymore. Like, it's just become the norm almost that that these women would have been kind of out and proud lesbians, and now are rejecting their own womanhood. They're rejecting their own femininity. They're rejecting their own homosexuality. And that is incredibly detrimental for the whole community.
The she, theys are rather prevalent too, which is a weird, that might be the Q in the acronym.
I would bet you that those are mostly not gay or homosexual, like bisexual or homosexual. Mostly, those are probably mostly the straights. We call them the spicy straights. Those are probably the spicy straights.
Spicy straights.
Yeah.